What is up, Middle School Sunday? My name is Sam Canchola, and my wife Aslan and I get to serve as your Central Youth Pastors here at Radiant. We're in week 3 of our series, The Other Side, where we're establishing new rules for a new season and talking about the Israelites journeying out of the wilderness and into the Promised Land. In week 1, we talked about the 12 stones in the Jordan River. Last week, Aslan talked about the Battle of Jericho. And this week, we're gonna focus on the Promised Land. But first, I wanna know, have you ever encountered a copycat before? Like someone who would just copy or repeat what you're saying just to annoy you? I remember this being the surefire way to make someone upset. Now on the other side though, copying though could actually be a good thing. Like, think about it like this, like when children copy what their parents do in a super cute way like this. Oh. Maybe you've heard the phrase, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. And this simply means that people imitate you because they want to be like you. And whether we realize it or not, we all imitate the people we love and want to be like. But what happens when we imitate bad influences or the wrong people? Well, we typically eventually pick up on their bad habits. And I think spiritually we find ourselves guilty of this as well. And if we're not careful, we'll find ourselves imitating the world's behaviors and characteristics instead of imitating God's. But here's the good news. We're called to look and act differently from the world. I know, it's in the notes. Go ahead and strike out the same as in your notes and write down differently. You see, Peter told the early Christians in 1 Peter 2:9 that you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession. And scripture is clear that because we believe Jesus is our king, we are part of a royal priesthood. And this makes us special because we belong to God. And because we belong to God, we are a people set apart for God. So in a crowd at school, at the mall, or on our basketball or soccer teams, there should be a difference in how we speak and behave, not imitating the world by swearing, being prideful, or just too puffed up, but imitating God. Now let's turn to Joshua 23, where Joshua shares his final words to Israel before he dies. And since Jericho, they have fought in battles, arrived in the Promised Land, and have split it among the 12 tribes of Israel. And this is what he tells them. He says, be strong. Be careful to obey all that is written in the book of the law of Moses. Without turning aside to the right or to the left, do not associate with these nations that remain among you. Do not invoke the names of their gods or swear by them. You must not serve them or bow down to them, but you are to hold fast to the Lord your God as you have until now. Out of everything Joshua could have said as his last words, he chose to tell them to hold fast to the Lord, which in other words just means cling tightly to God and separate themselves from the rest of the world. Don't turn to the right, don't turn to the left, don't associate with these nations because you'll begin imitating the world instead of God. And like the Israelites, we often struggle with wanting to be accepted by those around us and can be easily influenced by the patterns of the world. But scripture tells us that living apart from the world, separate sometimes even from the norms of our culture, is true worship, and that it's holy and pleasing to God. The Apostle Paul was pretty direct to the Christians in Romans 12, telling them, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good and perfect will. What we can take from this today is that we should live a life set apart for God. When we live a life set apart for God, refusing to become worldly people, we're in line with God's good, pleasing, and perfect will, which for us is to be God's special possession and part of his royal priesthood. But when we copy the behavior and customs of the world, all we reflect is sin and brokenness. However, when we copy the kingdom's ways, God uses us and blesses us. So as you prepare to head into small groups, I want you to think about this question. Does my life look like a copy of God or of the world. Your small group leader can help you unpack the things standing in the way of you reflecting Jesus to the world. This is why they are here this morning, because they love you and want to see you copying the behavior of God, not the world. So Radiant Youth, I've loved hanging with you, and I hope you have your best Sunday yet.